For more on the day's top stories, let's bring in our panel. Joining me now is Fabian Nunez, the founding and managing partner of the consulting firm Actum, and Matt Klink, Republican strategist and owner and president of Klink Campaigns Incorporated. Gentlemen, welcome. Good to see both of you.
Great to see you.
Graham Plattner, defiant in his video. Let's watch some of it.
That was a disgusting.
Oh, this was, okay, so he was defiant. Gretchen Carlson was frustrated in her response as somebody who was a sexual assault victim herself. Here's how she responded on CNN.
That was a disgusting display of hubris that every woman and man in America should be incredibly upset about.
He never said he did anything wrong. He just said, basically, I'm getting boxed out. Your response to his strategy and his tone?
Well, he couldn't have left this race soon enough. The fact of the matter is that somewhere in the vetting process, the folks who selected him to run for this seat forgot to do Oppo research, clearly. Because in the Oppo research, this stuff would have surfaced. And anybody who does a video like the video that he did just tells you has guilty spelled all over it.
Really?
He doesn't deserve to do that. And I don't know, I think for him personally and his family, it was a mistake to do that video. It was horrific. It doesn't come across as sincere. It makes me think that not only did he commit those crimes against those women, but I'm sure there are others.
And it was interesting. I want to put up a response from David Axelrod, the sort of legendary Democratic consultant who is a CNN contributor as well, who basically said, in the end, Plattner chose as his closing act a page right out of President Trump's tawdry playbook. Deny, deflect, refuse responsibility, play the martyr, slime your accusers. Plattner built an admirable movement, but there was nothing admirable about the way he said goodbye. You agree with that?
It took David Axelrod about one sentence before he mentioned Donald Trump. Look, the only vetting that Graham Plattner went through was that he polled better than Susan Collins did early in this race. And the Democratic Party so desperately wants to retake control of the Senate that they didn't properly vet this guy. I agree with Fabian that even a cursory top-line vet, you knew that where there's smoke, there's fire. There was more. Look at Swalwell. Plattner is the same thing. People that you see a candidate that is attractive to the most progressive elements of the base, they get excited, and the rest of the party says, he's our guy, let's go.
Well, Swalwell's a guy who had been in Congress for years, who had run for president before. Plattner really kind of came out of nowhere. So there wasn't even the long history that Swalwell had.
Yeah, but in these kinds of races, you know, you're running, the stakes are so high, you're running for the U.S. Senate. If you're on the Democratic or the Republican side, because both parties have made this mistake, what they do is they look for a candidate that fits a certain profile. In this case, it was someone who, okay, they gave money to Bernie Sanders. The guy has his own business. He looks like a real American. Let's drag him into this race because he's going to be the perfect candidate. And we forget about the fundamental reason why people should be running for office in the first place, which is you got to believe in something greater than yourself. And the act of running for office isn't a self-serving endeavor. It's really about contributing to the community, contributing to the country that you live in. And I think we've lost touch with the real fundamental reason why people should be running for public office.
Chuck Schumer didn't want him.
No.
He wanted Janet Mills, who was the governor of Maine, who the voters there did not want at all. And now, Matt, you have this very interesting situation where there's going to be this convention, apparently, of delegates from around the state who are going to come together in a matter of weeks. And all these people are throwing their hat in the ring. Troy Jackson, the former state Senate president, already has a picture up on his X with the campaign logo. I mean, he's in this already. There it is. Troy Jackson for U.S. Senate. He's got the campaign going already. How, as a consultant, as a strategist who advises people on campaigns, how would you advise somebody like Troy Jackson or these other folks who now have 3 weeks to win this race?
Pivot quickly. It's an insider's race. You've got 600 voters at max to reach out to. It is not going to be a popular vote. Ironically enough, they chose Graham Plattner because he was a progressive populist, and the party mainstream said, we don't like your choice. Democracy didn't work. We will tell you who you're going to pick. So any candidate who's running now, they have a 600-person voter universe that they can reach out to get their votes. It is the ultimate insiders campaign.
People pay you a lot of money for your campaign advice. What would your advice be in this situation?
I mean, I got to tell you, I agree with this advice, but there's another thing, there's another piece here that's really, I think, important to unpack, which is Susan Collins, right?
Yeah.
Susan Collins, as a U.S. Senator, in some ways, she's done some stuff that's admirable, but she's aligned herself with President Trump one too many times, in so much so that I think the people of her own state are distancing themselves from her. I think if any Democrat who is able to galvanize the support of the political insiders, because I think the insider class is ultimately who's going to fund this campaign. Once you get that insider class to support any Democrat, my pick, I would choose a woman. Certainly, I would choose a woman to run against Susan Collins. I think Susan Collins is still beatable. Her negatives are so high that I think anyone with a D next to their name could beat her.
Well, she's the only senator who's a Republican who is now in a state that Kamala Harris won.
Exactly.
So she should be the most vulnerable, and yet election after election, it's always, this is going to be the time that Susan Collins loses, and she continues to win.
The list is long of candidates who have underestimated
including women that have gone up against Susan Collins.
I will say, though, in this occasion, if we don't win that seat, it's of our doing.
Yeah,
for sure.
100%.
And this should be the year that she should be most beatable, but we'll see what happens there. Let's talk about the issue of immigration, which again, a reminder on what we saw in Texas. A vigil tonight for this Mexican American who's been here Mexican national who's been here for decades, has a family in Houston. ICE alleges that this guy drove his car at agents, and then they shot him in self-defense. We have not seen the body cam video yet. We have seen some disturbing images of him sort of grasping for life right afterwards. That's some of this video right here, this disturbing video that we're looking at. A reminder, Fabian, that this issue of immigration, even though ICE is not as in your face as it was when Kristi Noem was in charge, a lot of this stuff is still happening. Yeah.
A couple things I would say about it. First of all, I was looking at it down on my phone to look at his name, Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, Mexican immigrant, a father, a husband, a worker with no criminal, worked in construction, zero criminal record. If you're ICE and you're conducting these operations and you are alleging that he tried to run into an ICE officer, because we've already seen there's been 8 deaths of immigrants who have been killed in the hands of ICE already. 52 that have died in ICE custody, and another 2 protesters that were killed, including Elex. In this instance, if you're going to claim that Lorenzo ran his car into an officer, you need to show the video. You need to show the video, because the facts are not on your side when you're making these kinds of cases. You have ICE agents who don't get the proper training, who go out there and believe that they act with impunity, that they don't need to conduct themselves in accordance with the laws and the Constitution of the U.S., and think that it's okay to violate someone's constitutional rights and human rights. And people's lives are at risk here. So yes, ICE needs to prove that Lorenzo was driving into an officer. They have video footage. Sure. Where is that video footage? Because in the court of public opinion, you cannot hide. That needs to be shown right away. If the facts are on their side, they need to put in the proof as soon as possible.
I agree. Share the video. The part you didn't mention is that he had been in this country illegally, and he was still illegal. He didn't deserve to die. But before we convict the ICE officers, let's at least give them the benefit of the doubt until we see the tape that transpired.
Wait a second. But hold on a second, man. The fact that he was in this country illegally means nothing about how he was
And if he drove his car at the officers, that doesn't factor into it?
That's why I say let's
see what the video looks like.
But if he was here in this country illegally or not, doesn't matter. That's besides the point.
That's added to the story that you told that you forgot to mention.
No.
Yes.
Not at all, because it's not the point. The point here is he's a human being who was killed. He's a human being who was killed.
And let's watch the
fact that he may or may not be illegal is secondary to why he was killed.
I'm just saying it contributes to the story.
You said to give them the benefit of the doubt, and unfortunately there was a period of time where we were not always getting the facts from ICE, especially for some
no
of the stuff of what Kristi
no
Noem
disagreement
said.
from you on
And
that
so
whatsoever.
It would be good to see the video,
Yeah.
and obviously the idea of driving a car at somebody and trying to kill them is bad, and that would be a more understandable thing. Let's see what happened there.
And if they're wrong, they deserve to be prosecuted.
But in the court, but one of the
Lastly.
reasons why I get a little bit worked up about this, and obviously you're my friend, and I have nothing but
it's all
respect
good.
for you. But in the court of public opinion, I feel like Latinos are under siege. And people look at us and like, are you here legally? And does that change that? Do we not have any rights if we're here legally or not? Does that mean that the Constitution doesn't apply to you if you cross the border of the U.S.
If you drive
into
a car
the
and a
U.S.
law
illegally?
enforcement officer, it does.
Well,
yeah.
if you drive a car into a law enforcement officer, whether you're legal or not, that's against the law.
But it's still part of the
That's my
story.
point.
That's all I'm saying. You left
I
that
get
part
it.
out.
Well, I
it's a
said it
relevant
before
part.
he said that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was part of our conversation. Let's keep this conversation going.
Okay.
In our next hour, we got more to talk about, including Mitch McConnell and his health and what's going on there. So we'll get into that with our panel when they rejoin us in our next hour. But